Chapter 14, Return of the Madre. Running where the waves touch the beach makes it feel like I'm running faster than I am. My entire body hurts, but I won't slow down. It feels like trying to wring out a towel that just isn't wet enough to drip anymore, and yet you keep squeezing and twisting, hoping that some drops will fall. And I look at a bright blue sky and where it touches the ocean, and I hear a voice tell me that I don't belong anywhere, not with anyone. I go from a sprint to a run to a jog to a walk, to standing still on the beach with the water rolling over my feet, and wondering what I should do next, and remembering that Grammy says you should always follow your heart. But it doesn't seem smart to follow something that is broken. All of a sudden, the boy in black runs up to me, huffing and puffing. Finally, Ronan says. Huh? We started running at the same place, but you left me behind back by the jetty where it was like you pushed into a turbo button or something. You run like a machine. It's crazy. Thanks. I turned to go. Can I have a rematch? We weren't racing. Well, I guess you weren't, but I was until I got a cramp and had to stop. Sounds like an excuse. Nope, just a fact. So, rematch? Yeah, but not now. I've got to get home. We're having a cookout tonight. Lucky, I wish we were having a cookout. And without thinking, I turn to him and say, well, you can come. Do you want to? I guess I ask because of the thing he did on the beach. That was pretty cool. I want to ask him why he cries, but I don't. Really? You're inviting me to a cookout? I shrug. Sure, why not? You eat, don't you? Whenever possible, he says, smiling. And a burger? Yeah, I'll come. Your parents don't mind? I take a sharp breath in. No, they won't mind at all. We come up the road just in time to hear Henry's old captain's bell signaling that he's ready to start dinner. Henry stands near Olive's enormous pine and brightens when he sees me. Hey, Delcy, he waves. Your Grammy just called to say she'll be late. We walk toward Henry, but have to pass Ruby, who is casting a fishing line up into the trees. Uh-oh, I warn Ronan. Be careful. She may have a lure or a hook on that thing. She whips the pole back over her shoulder, and Ronan dives into the bushes. Ruby, I yell. Is there a hook on that? No, sorry to scare you, she says. I'm practicing to work on Daddy's boat. And you're doing a fine job with just a sinker on that line. Henry walks over. Who's your friend, he asks. Ronan steps forward and extends his hand. Ronan Gale, sir. Nice to meet you. Henry shakes his hand. Good handshake there, Ronan. I respect anyone with a good, firm shake. And it's good to have another guy around. You know, I'm kind of outnumbered here. Then he winks at me. But of course, I wouldn't have it any other way. Henry heads over to the half-barrel grill and lights it up. I wonder if Olive will show, I say, thinking aloud. Who's Olive? Lady that lives in the greenhouse. She promised last time that she wouldn't come to any more neighborhood cookouts, right after Henry said he was making a sign for the neighborhood entrance that read, Welcome to the doghouses, because the colors of our three houses are the three colors of the things you most often put on hot dogs, red, yellow, and green. Olive stormed off, saying she wouldn't have her home compared to relish, which is nothing but mushed up pickles, which are nothing but vinegar-soaked cucumbers. Grammy says that some folks just want to be mad about nothing. He grins. So a woman named Olive lives in a greenhouse. So who lives in the other houses? Apple and banana? Yeah, I laugh. You have a point. So which condiment do you live in? Mustard, but I wish I lived in ketchup. Me too, he says. I used to try telling my mom it was a vegetable, but she kept saying tomatoes are a fruit, so it'd be more like a jelly. Then he points at the abandoned house. Who lives in the old white one? Is that the hot dog bun? That's a good one. You'll have to tell Henry. But that bun's been empty for a long time. It looks it. I feel Olive's presence before I see her, the same way an animal senses storms and seeks shelter. Hello there, Olive, Henry says. So glad you could make it. Olive does not say hello. I came out here because someone has to do something about that child casting things around this neighborhood. You know that I love that tree. You know that, Henry. Goodness knows what she'll do to it. Speaking of the weather, he begins, and laughs at Olive's expression. Don't you go changing the subject on me again, Henry Isaac Lasco. Henry puts his arm around Olive's shoulder. Now, that child can't do a thing to that enormous tree. You know that. Humph. Then Olive looks over at Ronan. If you're planning on robbing my house, I'll save you the trouble. I've got nothing worth stealing. What? I blurt out. Why would you say that? You don't even know him. Sometimes Olive makes me feel like a Category 5 storm. Why, just look at him. He's dressed like a hooligan, she says. Henry shakes his head. He motions to Ronan to ignore her. Olive straightens and points at Ruby. And she'd throw a rock at my house. She did no such thing, Henry says, but I can tell by the way Ruby shrinks that she did do it. And when Henry looks at her, he knows too. Ruby Lauren, he says. I was trying to hit the tree and I missed. So does that count if it was by accident? It certainly does count, Olive snaps. My goodness, child, you would know how to walk in a two-person parade. Olive Tinsley, Henry says. He moves closer to his daughter and gives her a hug. Ruby is a good girl. Don't say otherwise. Why is she so mean? Ronan tries to whisper, but it comes out loud enough for everyone to hear. Olive stands there like she's trying to answer the question for herself. Her face looks like something hurts deep inside, and I swear that I hear her mumble that she's sorry. I can scarcely believe it. The sound of a car coming up the road makes us all turn. It's bright yellow, a taxi. I can't remember a single taxi coming to visit us ever in my life. I run to it. Something deep inside tells me this is something good, and as I get closer, the car stops and a purple suede high-heeled shoe hits the ground, and I know I'm right about it being good news. Esme, I yell, you're home! Sugar Pop, she calls. Henry and Ruby are there in a flash. Henry picks Esme up and swings her around while Ruby jumps up and down nearby. It's only a second before Esme reaches out and draws her in, like she's pulling her into a life raft. And it must feel that way to Ruby. The way she goes from moving to standing to going all gooey and pressing herself against the two of them. Esme turns and reaches for me. Delcy, what are you waiting for? Come on over here. She reaches for me, and I join the group of them. I feel complete. The neighborhood is whole again. Chapter 15, That Nourishing Tea. The next day, Esme invites me over. Shall I put on some tea? She asks as we walk into her kitchen. I stare up at the May the Fish Be With You sign over the sink that I made for Henry after we watched Star Wars. It's a hot day, so Esme prepares iced tea. Reaching into the cupboard, she pulls out the strong shoulder mason jars. She smiles at me as she works, and I feel all warm inside because I just love Esme so much. Ruby trips on a stool as she crashes into the room. She tries to sit in a chair, but misses it the first time she tries. Sometimes that girl is like a walking wrecking ball. The front door opens and Henry comes in. Ruby charges him. Daddy, did you catch me a fish today? Ruby, I caught you a whole box of fish sticks. How's that? Oh, Daddy. There they were, a box of them, just floating in the water. He laughs and kisses her on the head before reaching into the cabinet for a glass. Esme comes over and kisses him on the cheek. Bad jokes mean bad fishing. Yeah, other crews were reporting over the radio that the fish were biting at everything from bran muffins to belt buckles. But not us. Daddy, fish don't eat belt buckles. He laughs. They don't. No wonder I didn't catch a lot today. So how tough was it? Esme asks. Not the best, but we've been doing real good lately, so... He turns to me. Hey there, Delcy. When are you going to come on the boat with me and spread some of that McKill fishing luck around? I sit straighter. I'll come if you ask me. He leans forward. Well, I'm asking, he says. He's laughing, but I can see the worry swishing around inside of him. Looking up at the Massachusetts license plates on the mantle. One's from 1928 and 1929. I'm reminded of how superstitious the local fishermen are. When there were no fish in 28, they blamed it on the new design of the license plate. The next year, they demanded it be fixed, and the fish returned. I guess all fishermen worry about one bad day rolling into a whole bunch of them. I'm betting, Delcy McKill, he says, opening the fridge and grabbing a bunch of grapes, that you have that fish whispering gift just like Papa Joseph and your mom, Melly. I look up so fast, I nearly spill my tea. My mom liked to fish? Oh, yeah, and she was good at it, too. A lot of people think fishing is about luck. It isn't. It's about instincts, and your mom sure had good ones. You know, there's the basics of finding fish. The fish like the rips, or changes in the tide. If seagulls are circling or dive bombing an area, they're a fish. Head out to sea before the sun is too high in the sky, because once the sun is up, the striper dive. They like the cooler water. But it was like Melly could just sniff out the fish. Your grandfather used to joke, if she'd just sit on the bow of the boat, he'd only have to fish half the time. I am shocked. How come I didn't know this? He taps my nose. I thought I'd tell you that, since your Grammy told me you've been wondering about your mom. Henry spins away and scoops up Ruby. How's my girl? He asks. You want to go outside and play some wiffle ball with your old man before supper? And they are out the door before she can even answer. Of course, it was a yes. Ruby loves to hit things, although she misses a lot. I look down at my strong shoulder jar, and I don't feel strong at all. I miss Brandy, and I long for my mother. How can you long for someone you don't even know? So, Esme asks, drawing out the word. Her voice is soft. I think I must look goofy, like I want to cry. Can I ask you a question? I ask. She leans forward on her elbow. Of course, anything. And all of a sudden, the question runs from me, or the courage to ask it does. I sip some tea, trying to come up with a different question that doesn't have to do with the reasons a mother would leave or wouldn't stay. You always call your tea that nourishing tea, but it's nothing but water and a bunch of dried leaves. That doesn't seem nourishing to me. Esme throws her head back and laughs. You know, that's a very fair question, and I feel silly for never having explained it to you, Sugar Pop. Explained what? That nourishing tea is something my mother used to call it. I asked her a similar question when I was about your age, and she told me something I've never forgotten. When people are sad about things, or lonely, or angry, or confused, or any of the emotions that we people would rather avoid, they sometimes try to chase those feelings away with the wrong things. But a good cup of tea can make us feel so much better. Wow, your mom really liked tea. She laughs a bit. It isn't the tea, Delcy. It's that tea is so often shared. That's when friends lean forward and look each other in the eye. They laugh. They do more than hear. They listen. They connect. And anything that matters in this whole wide world is about connection. It's what makes all the hard stuff I talk about bearable. I nod. She leans forward and places her hand on my arm. Visiting with good friends like you, Delcy. I know that's supposed to make me happy, and I should agree, but I can't get what's caught in my throat unstuck. I stand up. I have to go. Grammy is probably wondering where I am. Her face questions me. There's so much I can't say. I can't tell her how Madre Sil coming back makes me curl up and pull the covers under my chin at night. I can't tell her one of my best friends has chosen a new best friend. And I can't tell Esme that I don't want her to be my friend. I want her and Henry to be my mom and dad. I'm glad they love me, but it feels like having the light of the sun, but not its warmth. It's been cloudy all day. Now when I step outside, rain begins to hit the ground like missiles. But nothing is going to stop me for training for the 5K run. I do a few stretches to warm up, thinking about the clouds, how they get darker and darker as they collect more water molecules inside of them. Then when the moisture gets to be too much and the cloud gets too heavy, they fall to earth as rain. I feel like that lately, heavy, like everything is building up and will end in some kind of storm. I study the abandoned house across from us. I wonder why the people left it behind. Did they figure out it wasn't a good house? Did they find a better one? Do they ever think about it now? I begin my run, hoping I can outrun being so lonely. The rain comes so hard the earth can't soak it up. Swift rivers of it run along the curbs. Gutters become waterfalls. Puddles send water up my legs as my feet crash into the middle of them. The thing about the rain is that you can't stop it. It needs to find places to go. Our basement is made with thick walls of concrete, but I know after a storm like this, there will be water. And when the storm finally passes and the sun comes out, the water will evaporate and leave everything dry again. But you know that the rain will eventually return, because that is what rain does. Things that I'd rather not think about remind me of the rain. The thoughts seep into everything. They rise and overflow. They may recede for a while, but they always return.